what we're going to do now is we're going to take our arms here and our hands and make them work together. So the last system is just the hand rig. Now, to keep things simple, the hand rig that I'm going to build is just a basic FK hand rig. That's going to be what we focus on today. But the more important thing is, how do we get this rig to actually follow with the IK or the FK? That's going to be the system we run into. To begin with, though, let's get the rig built and just kind of get our hand rig in place. I'm going to start by creating our controls here. So we can go ahead and find what looks good for our hand. Now, because I accidentally deleted my curve, I'm just going to create one, NURBS curve, and we're going to go with circle here. And we can go ahead and place this up here on our controls. So we're just going to add these in and basically rotate these to sort of match. Now, I'm going to duplicate this for the base of each hand and kind of take a moment here with the model turned on to scale these and rotate these to make sense for the particular area that they're going to be covering. So that'll give me my first one there for the thumb. If I want to, I can freeze transform if I feel that's needed. I'll duplicate this down and we'll go ahead and rotate this and kind of scale this and get this into place. Freeze transform. And we can go ahead and name these things here. So this will be my L thumb control 1. I could also name it base control. And this will be my L thumb control 2. So control C, control D. And then we can do the same thing with all of our other fingers. So I'll go ahead and just rotate this one up here to be 90 degrees, since that should be correct. And bring in our visibility here. And this will be my index control 01. And then we can duplicate these down. So I'll go ahead and make this my L index CTRL 01. And as we duplicate, Maya should naturally propagate the name. So control D and V, control D and V, and then just select these to make sure that they are looking appropriate. I might scale them a little bit here, and we can go ahead and freeze their transforms. Then we'll go ahead and do the outer one here. This one's going to be a little bit funkier because the shape. So I'll go ahead and do this to minus 90 or 90, doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and get it big enough so I can actually see this, and then kind of rotate it a little bit since it's following a weird path. And this one's going to be kind of an ovoid, so I'll scale it. And that looks good. Now, what I'm just going to call this one is MIT. So we're going to make this our L MIT CTRL 01. And then we can go ahead and duplicate this, and then adjust these as needed. These actually look fine. So I might actually make that one a little bit wider, a little bit stouter, and maybe adjust the rotation. But yeah, I think that just about does it for the hand control placement here. So make sure these are easy to grab, easy to see. I might go ahead and turn off my texture since everything's kind of blue. But let's go ahead and freeze transforms. And a very important step to save yourself a lot of time is to take all of these lovely controls you just made, put them in a group. So Control D or Control G, then Control D to duplicate and scale X -1. And the reason why I put them in a group is, notice it preserves the naming convention. So you could do a modify, search, and replace names left to right here, and then you can unparent these. We actually are going to want them in a group, so I'm actually going to leave that group for now. But we'll go ahead and just start with these guys here. We'll just go ahead and Shift P to unparent these, delete the group they were in. And now we can go to town setting up our FK system. So at this point, you guys should be an FK master. So let's go ahead and get to that. We'll do our hypergraph hierarchy here, and you know the drill at this stage. So the drill is to basically make those null groups and just go to town. Now I do this one finger at a time, so I'm going to just start with the thumb. We'll start with the base null here, constrain parents, and we'll go ahead and check that maintain offset to be off and hit apply, and then just kind of repeat that process down the line here. If you are feeling adventurous, feel free to try and do all the fingers at the same time. We're going to parent these back under the null. We're going to freeze transforms. And we're going to take the null back to, or the curve back to the joint and hit apply. And then we're going to rebuild our hierarchy. All right, so we're going to take that null to curve. And that should do the trick. So at this stage, this should have the correct orientation. And you can see our movement. Okay, so let's just review the process. Control G, Control G, Control G. Get your nulls. Go joint to null, joint to null, joint to null with maintain offset. That stores that in the null. Then parent the curve to its respective null. Parent the curve to respective null. Parent the curve to respective null. Select the curve in free transforms. Then go ahead and do a null to curve reparenting. Null to curve reparenting. And don't forget to take the control back to the joints and go ahead and do another parent constraint. So that way the control here controls the joint. All right. I might have said null the joint. Do what I show, not what I say. My brain is tired. Let's go ahead and just do it on the last one. Create our 3 nulls. Go ahead and go joint to null, joint to null, and joint to null. And if any of you are finding this at this point in the rig, what I encourage you guys to do, go check out the earlier stages. I talk about this in the earlier stages when we're setting up the FK system for the torso, so you guys can understand nulls and offset groups. Right now, we're pretty far in, so for those of you following the series, I don't want to spend a lot of time reviewing each of these steps. So, yeah. All right, that gets that set up. Let's go ahead and just constrain these back. Constrain these back. And then after a very exhausting period of time building our hands, we're good to go. Now, just imagine if our character had, 5 fingers, or what comes out to be 10 fingers. What we want to make sure is these work, which is great. And now what I want to talk about is the elephant in the room. What's going to happen when I move my arm? Ooh, that's a problem. All right. Now, what about the FK? How's the FK looking? That's my leg. All right. How's the FK? Oh, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. Oh, that's a problem. All right. We got a problem. So how do we fix our problem? That's a good question. The problem is actually fixed by making it follow the FK joint. So you want to find the common joint here, which in both rigs is actually the FK joint. So I'm actually going to turn on my FK arm, because remember, the IK is controlling the FK, but we don't want the joint to directly control our rig. We want the rig to kind of be broken out from this system. Now, we've learned about broken hierarchies. How do we do broken hierarchies? What we do is we take a locator, we snap it to the joint we want it to follow, freeze its transforms, give it a name. So this is going to be my L wrist, and we just make this follow the joint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my FK joint. I'm going to shift select my wrist here, do a constrained parent, and we can go ahead and make sure maintain offset's on and hit apply. And what that will do now is it will make it so this locator tracks the FK system, but because the FK system is being controlled by the IK system, it will also track the IK system. See how it's following both of those? So what we can do now is we can make that be what controls the hand. So that way we don't have to build an IK hand and an FK hand. We can just simply build a singular hand control that follows both systems. All right, so with this in place, we can confirm that this is indeed following our FK system, which it is. And we can set up the hands to follow. Now, we can't just parent the hands to this, of course. We have to do some stuff to make this work. So what are we going to do? We're going to take the top null of each of the hands, or each of the fingers. We're going to control G these, and we're going to just call this our L hand rig. And we're going to take the pivot of this group, and we're going to move it to be on the wrist joint. And what that's going to do is it's going to make this group control all the fingers. Now, most importantly, what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to take the locator here that we have and control the hand rig. So we're going to shift select that left hand rig, shift select that hand rig group, and do a constrained pair. So what this will do now is it will go ahead and make all those fingers rotate with the wrist. And you can see now my hand's moving, my fingers are moving, and you can see how that system's in place. All right, so the last thing I need to do is just make sure that's working with IK. I'll switch to my IK system, and you'll see it's going to move with this as well. So now we have a system that works with both IK, FK, and the trick is to do that broken hierarchy. All right, so that's going to get our finger set up. Now, I'm going to set this up for the other side, but at this point, you guys should be good to go to try it on your own. So I encourage you guys to give that a shot. I don't really think there's going to be any new information over here that you guys haven't seen, so I'll probably speed through it. But that is going to be how we finish off the finger controls here. So let's go ahead and just get it set up for the other side. Sometimes you can do things in anticipation of, which is kind of worth noting. So since I do know that my other side, I want this locator to track, I can just go ahead and create it to begin with. Make sure you freeze transforms, and this will just be our wrist locator. And then we can just take the FK, make it track that locator by doing a constrained parent with our maintain offset on, hit apply, and now we can just go to town building our FK hands here. Okay, so at this point, I'll go ahead and speed through it. I don't think there's anything else I need to kind of cover on these. Actually, there is one last thing. So before I get to that hand, let's go ahead and talk about it over here. And the one thing that I might want to play around with is the ability to kind of change the translation of this. If I want to leave this up to the animator or not, or if I want to create a system. I think I'll just leave the translate on here so that the animator can actually translate the base placement of the fingers. That way they have a little bit more control. But I just wanted to mention that sometimes we can bake in controls for that. But in the particular instance of this, I think I'm going to allow the animators to basically shape the fingers if they want to. What I need to decide, though, is if I want to allow that to happen on all the axes or not. And I think I'll leave them on all axes. But that's one last thing I would say is, we might want to create an automated hand. But to keep things basic, I'm just going to leave that out. All right, so I'm going to get to rigging this guy. So before I get started on this, I do want to call out a very important step here, which is to unparent these from the group. As I was working, I was getting some issues here where I was getting negative transforms and some weird things, and it's because it was storing that flip value. So do make sure you remove these from the group before you start building out this next hand here. That's going to be a very important step. So I do want to call that out because I didn't explicitly do that yet, but we do need those out of that group. The reason why I said we did need them in a group is because that final step where we parent everything together, but it's also why I mentioned we didn't need them in that group. We needed them in a new group. All right, so I just want to be clear with that as you start in on this next hand that you are going to want to remove those from that group and make sure you have a nice clean base to start with here. All right, cool. So that finishes off my finger controls here, and we're just about done and ready to kind of build this up. Just make sure you test everything. Make sure you didn't accidentally, maybe constrain these to a wrong spot before you move forward. Very important factor. Also, check for any deformation issues. I do have a bit of a deformation issue here on my fingers, and we'll probably talk about correcting that later. But at this point, we have a fully functioning rig. It should all kind of function together. What we need to do is kind of add in our finishing touches and our cleanup, which is going to be what we do next. And then, like I mentioned, we'll take a look at adding accessories in another portion. But just for getting kind of a basic character up and running, you can see that we are pretty much there. And we are ready to animate almost. We just have a few more steps to do. All right, so go ahead and build out your FK fingers, get that system in place, and your hand, I guess, in general. And what we're going to do in the next one is kind of clean this up, consolidate our hierarchy, clean up our controls, and get this ready for an animator to use. Also, remember to save.